The Joe Rogan Experience.
One of the things that a lot of people have talked about, and I had the LDS Church issued a statement sort of critiquing the show and critiquing me, which I appreciate, and I understand why members of the Mormon community would be offended by the portrayal of Brigham Young and the Mountain Meadows Massacre, which was the event that we use as kind of our inciting incident for the first episode, which was a real massacre that the Mormons committed on a group of pioneers who were heading out west, or a Mormon militia with some Paiute Indians attacked and murdered about 140 men, women, and children. And we present that in the film, and we present Brigham Young in the film. And many Mormons, it's interesting to start reading all the debate about it, but a lot of Mormons were saying, yeah, this is exactly what happened, and this is a part of our history. And there were other Mormons, particularly the seniors in Salt Lake City, were saying this is not what happened, this is not fair. But what I find interesting about the Mormon church and about kind of how we present it is I've had a lot of people come to me and go, dude, I never knew the Mormons were such savages.
So gangster.
They were fucking gangster. Brigham Young was, in my opinion, a gangster, a survivor, a warrior. And for anyone who follows Mormon history, they started in upstate New York with this young kid, Joseph Smith, who found these tablets and basically rewrote the Bible and started getting this following. And then they moved to Missouri and they got popular. And then there was an extermination order, and it was kill all the Mormons. So they fled to Illinois and tried to survive up there at this place called Nauvoo that was going to be their peaceful place to live. And Joseph Smith was murdered, and they were run out of Illinois. And Brigham Young led these dudes, men and women, on foot across the plains in the winter to Salt Lake Valley, which was this desolate wasteland. And he said, oh, we'll stay here. They'll never come for us here. And they started coming. And Brigham Young basically said, fuck it. We're not taking it anymore. He built his own army, the Nauvoo Legion, and he said, we're staying here. We won't mess with you, but if you come after us, we will fight. And that point, I think, is interesting. And I think Brigham Young, who survived longer than all of them, and if you go to Salt Lake City, he did a pretty good job, right? Like,
yeah.
That's a big city, man. And
it's a great city.
And I don't know. I respect the Mormon religion. I respect Brigham Young. And I feel like we make him look like a gangster in American Primeval. And I don't know. He's a survivor, and I respect that. The polygamy was a thing, and we do touch upon that a bit in Primeval. I think Brigham Young had 40-odd wives.
Nice.
And that...
How do you fucking keep up with two?
I don't know.
I don't really understand how someone could have two wives.
That's a whole nother conversation. I mean, I have a friend who lives in Saudi Arabia, and a long time ago I was in Saudi Arabia doing some work, and I had asked him, because in Saudi you can have multiple wives, Saudi men, and I'd asked him about that, and sort of like, wow, that's amazing, multiple wives, that's so cool. And we were leaving Riyadh Airport, and he was walking with me, and there was a man in front of us, and he was holding like 5 suitcases, and he could barely walk, and there were 4 women around him and kids everywhere, and he just looked like he was about to collapse and fall face forward on the ground at the airport in Riyadh. And my friend looked at me and said, Pete, this is the reality of what having 5 wives looks like on the ground, if you want to see what it really feels like. So to think about Brigham Young having 45 wives, okay, good luck, I guess. Right? Yeah. But that was one of the issues, the polygamy that people that were non-Mormons back in 1850s were using to attack the religion. And, that was something that was, the polygamy has obviously been since outlawed, and the church has cut itself off from that policy. But The Mormons were the whole idea that this kid, Joseph Smith, I believe he was a young teenager, 14.
Yeah.
When he and his buddy walked into these woods in like late 1830s, right? Like
It was 1820.
Okay.
When did Joseph Smith supposedly find these golden tablets? I believe it was, but either way, early.
56 wives.
Brigham Young had 56. There's a photo of
This
it.
16 he forgot about.
See, I didn't want to oversell it, so I undersold it. I kind of knew it was in the 50s. He had 56 wives.
46 kids, only 46 kids made it to adulthood. So that's part of why.
Oh wow, only 46. He's basically Genghis Khan of Utah.
But
1823, he was visited by an angel who directed him to a buried book.
1823?
Yeah.
and how old was he? Like
14.
14. So,
Yeah.
so this kid at 14 comes out of the woods and says, the angel came and told me that the Bible's almost right, but it's not quite right. So I'm going to rewrite it, which he did, the Book of Mormon. And look at where we are today. It was not that long ago, right? And in the course of that journey from Joseph Smith coming out of the woods to where we are today with Brigham Young University and the beautiful city of Salt Lake City, Utah, there was a lot of bloodshed. And Joseph Smith was murdered. Brigham Young fought in another interesting theory that isn't proven, but I believe it holds, is what saved the Mormons. Because in 1857, when you had the Mormon Wars, Brigham Young was fighting President Buchanan, and when the military was coming after him in 1857, and he was holed up and prepared to fight in Salt Lake City, and Buchanan wanted him out. And then right around 1858, 1859, little thing called the Civil War popped off. And the entire focus of the U.S. military was not on Brigham Young and Utah, but it was on fighting the Civil War. The Utah church was able, and Brigham Young was able to grow the Mormon church and survive and thrive. And he was able to politically negotiate, a place in the government so that by the time the Civil War ended, Brigham Young was deeply entrenched and was, able to lead the Mormon church to the great power that it is today. I think if the Civil War hadn't occurred, there would be no Mormonism in the United States.
Wow. That's crazy. What a fortuitous turn of events.
And I'm going to probably get ripped on for that one, but I believe it's supportable.
Yeah, you're going to get ripped for everything.
That's okay.
Whatever. That's just how it is. Mormons are the nicest people. My next door neighbors used to be Mormons. They're the nicest fucking people.
I agree. I completely agree. And
they're so nice. I know a ton of Mormons because I know a bunch of people in Utah.
And Salt Lake City Utah is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful state. Salt Lake City is a cool city. And I'm down with the Sundance Film Festival, so I'm down with the whole state.
Yeah, no, I love Utah, but it is a fascinating story. It's and it's, look, they have a great sense of humor because the Book of Mormon, when Matt Stone and Trey Parker did that musical, they took out a full-page ad in the playbook. So they're like, if you want to know more about Mormonism, come visit, find out the real thing. So instead of protesting and suing and attacking them, and they just took out a fucking ad.
So when I was
I think that shows incredible character.
For sure.
Because that fucking, you've seen the Book of Mormon, right?
Yes, I have.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
And pretty brutal. And they're like, if you like to find out more about Mormonism.
Yeah, I can't figure out, when I was doing my research for American Primeval, I went to Salt Lake City, and the Mormon church gave me a tour. And I told them what the film was about and that the Meadows Massacre was in the book, or was it going to be in our show. And they took me to the theater. Have you ever been to the theater, the Mormon Theater in Salt Lake City?
No.
Holds 20,000 people. It is the most beautiful, incredible theater where they have, weekly events and meetings, and they took me in there, and there's a huge pipe organ, and I had a private, concert with their organist. Yeah, it's that.
Whoa, look at that place.
And I sat by myself in the center of that theater, and you see the pipe organs.
Yeah.
And they gave me a private, concert. And then they took me into the museum and showed me, the history of the Mormon Church. And I told them about the Meadows Massacre, which, I've taken heat for in the show. And at the end of the tour, there's a bookstore in the museum, the Mormon Museum in Salt Lake. And the book, Mountain Meadows Massacre, by this guy Turley, was there. And I'm like, I want to buy this book. I read the book. And I'm like, oh, for sure we're putting this story in our film. And it was for sale in the Mormon bookstore.
Oh.
And I met with the author, Turley, who then took me to the site of the Mountain Meadows Massacre. And he had written the book with the support of the Mormon Church to get their side of the story
Did you
out.
film at the actual site?
No, we didn't. The actual site was in Utah. But I went and toured it.
So you filmed in New Mexico?
Yeah, we filmed everything on different reservations around Santa Fe. But if you go to the site of the Mormon Meadows Massacre in Utah, the Mormons have built a big memorial there honoring the 130 pioneers from Arkansas who were killed there. And the Mormons have owned this event, and they were very willing to talk about it, which is kind of like them buying a full-page ad in Book of Mormon.
Right.
They're like, we know you're going to make a film about the Meadows Massacre that's probably going to be inflammatory in some ways. However, come visit us. We want to meet you. We want to show you. We want to play music for you. And I had an incredible time with the Mormons that were, involved with us doing the research for Primeval.
So what is the backlash, though? If they've admitted that this massacre took place and it's part of the historical record, the book is for sale in this Mormon theater, what is the backlash?
The biggest single issue, if you get into the weeds, and I think it's an interesting point of debate, is whether or not Brigham Young knew and authorized this massacre. And the way the massacre played out in real life was different how we did it in the film. In the film, we did it in one swell move, like it just happens. And we filmed it in one shot, and it's pretty intense, visceral, very fast event, and then it's over. In reality, this wagon train was surrounded by the Mormon militia, the Nauvoo Legion, and some of these Native Americans. And it went on for about 4 or 5 days. And the Mormons dressed up as Native Americans. This is where it gets kind of, some Mormons aren't thrilled that we pointed out the fact that they were trying to put the blame on the Native Americans. So they literally, Mormons dressed up as Indians to confuse the pioneers, and in case there were survivors, to say, oh, it wasn't Mormons, it was the Native Americans that did this. So they don't love that. But what the Mormons claim, or some in the Mormon Church claim, is that during the 3 or 4 days that the siege took place, before the actual massacre, and the details of the massacre are really fucked up, because the Mormons pretended they were accepting a surrender. So they went in with white flags and they said, okay, the men walk this way, the women and children, we're going to walk you to safety because the Indians are going to kill you. The Mormons said, we're here to save you. So they started walking them out, and then on someone's signal, they just killed everyone. It was really bad. But the issue of whether Brigham Young knew about it or didn't know about it, we imply that he knew about it. We never say that he authorized it, but we imply that he did know about it. And what many of the defenders of Brigham Young will say is that there was a letter written where Brigham Young said, do not harm these pioneers, don't kill them. But the letter was sent by horse while the event was already occurring. So I've had people say he knew that letter wasn't going to make it there in time. He was covering himself. Oh, hey, I wrote a letter. I knew it couldn't get there in time, but I wrote a letter, so there's plausible deniability. No one knows. It's hard to believe if you really start getting into this, and obviously I did. I know it's not on the top of everyone's list of things to give a fuck about. But it's really hard for me to believe that in 1857, a group of Brigham Young soldiers would act unilaterally on their own and commit a crime this horrible without somebody approving it.